Breaking news today. Call for an end to hostilities between Russia and Ukraine immediately. Give peace a chance, in Spanish. Den una oportunidad a la paz, was the title of a protest song written by John Lennon in 1969. It caused Nixon great discomfort because it stoked even more opposition to the U.S. war in Vietnam, particularly among young people. Han pasado más de 50 años desde que se grabó aquella música y ahora tenemos, además de la guerra que acaba de estallar entre Hamas y Israel y de las numerosas guerras olvidadas, la de Rusia contra Ucrania que pronto cumplirá 2 años. A war about which we know some details but very little. The Russian government under Vladimir Putin's leadership has committed international illegality, among other things we know. The United Nations Charter explicitly forbids the invasion of one country by another, to preserve future generations from the flames of war. Article 2 of the Charter states that signatories shall not resort to the threat or use of force against the territorial integrity or political independence of any state, and that they instead shall settle their international disputes through peaceful means. Therefore, it is abundantly clear that Russia has and is continuing to violate the United Nations Charter it signed on its day. The second certainty is that Ukraine is entitled to defend itself. Y tiene derecho a recabar toda la ayuda internacional posible para tener éxito en esa defensa. Another certainty. The international community has a moral obligation to support Ukraine. With a caveat. The aid given to Ukraine should equip the country with defensive weapons, but not offensive ones, as that would only exacerbate the conflict. Equally, other countries shouldn't get involved with their own armies. Since the Berlin Wall came down in 1989, the Organization for Transatlantic Relations, OTAN, has grown to include 14 former Soviet republics: the Czech Republic, Hungary, Poland, Bulgaria, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, Romania, Slovakia, Slovenia, Albania, Croatia, Montenegro, and North Macedonia. Estonia and Lithuania are the only two that border Russia. And this despite a formal agreement between the United States and Russia, which states that the United States would approve of Germany's membership in the Organization for Transatlantic Security, OTAN, if it promised not to encircle the East. This deal was carried out in a most honorable manner. The foregoing should be remembered not as a reason for Russia's invasion of Ukraine, since none exists, but as a explanation in response to the OTAN's expansion. Russia drew a red line, insisting that neither Ukraine nor Georgia, with which it shares a 2,400-kilometer border, become members. But the United States and Ukraine played with that possibility. ¿Acaso no era Ucrania a país soberano? Why can't it apply to join the North Atlantic Treaty Organization? Why not give in to her demands? Due to their attempts to arraign Russia while disregarding what that country views as its geostrategic security zone, the United States, the country that currently commands the Organization for Transatlantic Relations, bears much of the blame for this conflict. For some reason, we were on the brink of nuclear war in 1962, when Khrushchev decided to install missiles in Cuba, another sovereign nation. Hay cosas con las que no se juega. Let's move on to the parts of this war that we've been ignoring. First, the true number of victims is unknown because it is kept under wraps. The New York Times speculates that the death toll in Ukraine could reach 75,000, while in Russia it could reach 300,000. These figures don't include the more than 100,000 injured Ukrainians and 170,000 injured Russians. That is, if these estimates are correct, there are more than 600,000 victims, of whom roughly 400,000 have lost their lives. Countless lives have been lost, countless children have been left orphaned and injured, and over 6 million people have been forced to flee their homes in Ukraine due to the conflict. Millions more are living in poverty as a result of the destruction of their communities' homes and infrastructure. We also ignore the profits that the arms industry has made from this war, especially in the United States, the largest producer in the world, even though these profits must be astronomical. Official figures show that the United States has given Ukraine $45 billion in military aid, to which must be added the €12 billion contributed by EU member states. The EU has also given Ukraine $50 billion in loans and subsidies to cover civil and humanitarian expenditures and rebuilding. However, when compared to the rise in military expenditures caused by the war, those numbers for weapons and military hardware are relatively small. As two examples, to meet the OTAN goal of spending 2% of GDP on defense, a goal that the United States has been demanding since before the war, Germany has announced the creation of a special fund to fund the military with €100 billion. In Spain, it is predicted that military spending will rise to €27 billion in 2023, an increase of 26% from the previous year. The United States also benefits from the war because of the sanctions imposed on Russia in the energy sector. Exxon alone reported a profit of $56 billion in 2022 as a result of these sanctions.